Welcome back to TTC. I just bought Harbor Freight's most expensive gas generator, their Predator Inverter Generator that goes for about $2,300. And if I'm honest about two things, it's that I sort of wish I didn't have to, even though this generator in the world of generators, $2,300, well, they can go much higher, but do, as it turns out, need this. And honestly, the last few years, I bought the entire spectrum of small, handy stuff like even the kids can use in the back of the car type of backup power solutions, to useful to power stuff in a blackout inverters, to generators, and now this chunky guy. So come with me as we dive into some of the pros and cons when it comes to different levels and price points in order to turn those lights back on. Or in my case, no one seems to be all that worried about the lights as long as the fridge is running and the internet's running bluey. Now, where we live, we have a lot of trees and sometimes snow and oftentimes high winds. All of those things put together mean either through an abundance of caution with a heads up from the power company, they shut off the power, or through those factors causing outages, we see a fair amount of blackouts. That mixed with rolling outages in the summer, some areas are getting more and more. It sure does seem like these type of things are becoming more relevant by the year, so maybe for you too. Starting with the lowest priced and most common options, battery-powered power banks or top-off style inverters. Everyone's got some version of these, but these days some models get upwards of 45, 80, 90 watts, 100 watts, up to 140 watts out of USB-C ports. It's pretty crazy. This is enough to charge and power everything from phones to laptops to soldering irons, and in a useful pinch when the kid's kicking your driver's seat because their tablet went flat on a road trip. More to our topic today though, you can also do similar with power tool batteries. Like Skill has them built into their packs here, and many brands offer a top-off style battery attachment. For example, this DeWalt DCB090, that's USB-A for mainly like smartphones and tablets, and this Ryobi that they have a 12-volt port on for like blowing up camping beds. Then there's the DeWalt DCB094K, and that's up to 100 watts and USB-C for handheld devices, yeah, now laptops as well. The only problem is this is like $80, and for that you should, if you can, buy a similarly priced 120 volt inverter type top-off thing if you can. What this does is usually provides a USB out as well for more efficient DC to DC charging, but also a 120 volt AC out for regular electronics, like just plug-in stuff. You got like the $80 Ego 150 watt model, and probably the best priced examples going to the Ryobi 150BG, which is 150 watt. Craftsman has one as well. Either of these for $50, no reason not to own one of those if you can. Though I find personally, if running a decently sized TV, the internet and modem, Wi-Fi router, that can sometimes be too much wattage to ask in some cases. Your mileage may vary, but both Ridgid and M18 have 175 watt versions for $80 to $90, and Ego has a $100 180 watt model. These are more often able to handle that task. Bauer is also a standout when it comes to price for this as well. Either way, this is what I'd call the first class of suddenly and unavoidably off-the-grid power, top-off style attachments. Pros are that these are cheap, they're small, so very portable if you want to take it with you camping, for example, and available lots of places. Lowe's, Home Depot, Ace Hardware, even Walmart has a Heart one as well. But the main pro, of course, is being able to finally charge your batteries with batteries, which I think means, if I'm doing the math right here, infinite power. I mean, Marvel, come on, this is low-hanging fruit. The cons are, some brands are only USB, and none of them can power things like sump pumps in a pinch, and the TV with internet router. For the rest of your home, your mileage may vary. Okay, and the next sort of class of power in a pinch, as I see it, is single battery inverters that step things up a bit. We're talking 300 to 400 watts. You usually find these options from higher voltage battery platforms like OPE or outdoor power equipment type flavors. And this is what I currently use to power our TV, internet, Wi-Fi solution throughout the home. And that internet does still work in my case when the power goes out. And this puts a stay of execution on the mutiny that would come from the kids when the power is out, at least for a few hours. I use Ryobi 40 volt here simply because many of their HP OPE tools are pretty decent. In my experience, you can find their batteries used or on sales pretty cheap. And in this case, 300 watt AC inverter is about $95, similar in price to some of the top offs, but around twice the output. Other examples are Ego's $150 400 watt PAD 5000, which we have used around here and also works very well. The 300 watt Cobalt ones in their 40 volt and 80 volt lines are about $100. These are just some of the examples. And this is my favorite single appliance type home tool battery inverter for 3 reasons. They typically cost similar to many of the top-off styles. They add a lot more uses like heated blankets and somewhat larger electronics. And they cost per watt hour, like how much the batteries cost per amount of runtime juice, is typically both less and go to higher levels on a single battery. This Ryobi 40 volt 12 amp hour is like a comparable 24 amp hour Milwaukee battery, and this Ego 56 volt would compare to like a 36 amp hour M18 if that existed. Not cheap by any means, but cheaper than 3 12 amp hour Milwaukees in one pack, which will come in handy because one of the cons here is that there's no way to hop swap these. Your TV and internet is gonna have to reboot when you switch out a new battery. And while it can do many more things than these, still in most cases, not your home fridge, not gonna do a deep well sump pump. And those are some of the main reasons you might want backup power in an outage. And finally, 300 to 400 watts is great, but if you don't have a quite large pack, it's not gonna last a long time between changes. Okay, and the last of the battery-powered options before we go and greenlight some gasoline is the power stations. These come in 2 types. You have your Jackery, EcoFlow, Harbor Freight's new Predator pack types. These are basically a big battery with a power cord to charge it, and they can charge from solar too, which is a plus, and you draw from that battery. It has some 120 volt plug ports out the front. And then there's these power tool battery type inverters. The benefits of this enclosed pack type is that it takes up less space, and you should be able to use it more often, like weekly, maybe even daily. Iron phosphate battery cells, which these all should have, make sure, are going to have a lot more charge cycles than lithium ion cells. And some of these latest models will charge faster than you can charge your tool batteries. That said, I've typically gone the other route here for a few reasons. I've always, even before this channel, had a lot of power tool batteries, and it seemed to me finding a dual use for them makes those past purchases in effect like even cheaper when not having to buy a big battery bank like this. So my brain enjoys those endorphins from that dual usage and cost savings, but to be clear, these things are far from free. And in this one's case, knowing I'll be able to use it with high startup draw power tools was the clincher. Most of these things are good, decent power output. This is going to power nearly everything you can plug a 120 volt into, but man, do a lot of these beep at you and get mad when spinning up like a circular saw, large grinder, chop saws, table saws. Stuff this 3600 watt peak M18 inverter power bank has no problem with, and has a track record of working on job sites without power. So that is why I bought it, though as technology progresses, it seems like a lot of these battery bank stations are catching up these days. To fill these though, if you're not already chock full of batteries, is insane. Whether it's DeWalt's 1800 watt, Ryobi's 40 volt 1800 watt, Ego's Power Nexus 3000 watt, Cobalt, it takes a fortune and will end up being more costly, of course, than just buying an all-in-one. Which is why we like adapters. The vast majority of these things, even Milwaukee's latest highest power model here, pull power from these packs in a rather dumb way. And we got DeWalt, Ridgid, Hercules batteries, all to work on this M18 power station with simple adapters as long as you're fooling it with the right resistance. Hercules 12 amp hour batteries, for example, being half the price or as much as a third the price on the used market compared to Milwaukee ones when they have basically the same cells inside. The last benefit of many of these is that they can be used as a multi-bank charger, for example, charging 4 batteries at once, which when you look at some of these brands, what they charge for those chargers, you can save a couple $100s off of that effectively. Though be warned, some, for example, like the Ryobi, charge very slow and only 1 bank at a time, which in a power outage scenario doesn't make a lot of sense. So let's take a look at the overall pros and cons here. We're talking 1,000 to 4,000 watts for these types discussed here. Generally $200 to $1,000, and they deliver clean power. I don't mean like green power, but it will become more relevant in a bit when discussing these down here. You can use corded heavy draw power tools on some of these. They even run AC units. I did so this past summer during 2 outages. Though that is a lot of juice, you're only going to get like 1.5 to 2 hours before you need to charge these or need another round of batteries. And we're finally talking 2 to 3 120 volt outlets here instead of 1. And this type can often be hacked with different battery adapters to run that cheaper and purchase battery brands you might already have. The cons are, starting from square one, just filling this with batteries would be lunacy. You should buy an all-in-one power station if that's the case, and many models will shut off and beep at you in this case if you take one of those batteries out while in use, which can be annoying. Like if one pack is a 5 amp hour battery and the others are 12s, well, you're gonna have to turn everything off before swapping over another 5 into it. Okay, and on to some smoky boys. The first class and the size I used to own is a 60 to 80 cc suitcase style looking gas generator. You know them, you've seen them around food trucks, farmer market stalls, you love them. These are sweet because they're cheap. For less than many of these solutions we talked about in power stations, you can do a lot of the same things for way longer. The power density of gasoline, even in the 2020s today, is almost impossibly hard to beat. And recharging it is as simple as lifting a jerry can for 30 seconds. And we find these to be less picky as well. A 2000 watt rated battery power station may sound the alarms when you spin up a corded tool, but these, even in a similar watts rating, are just dumb machines, and I mean that in a good way. They don't as much mind sudden spikes of current as long as they can sustain those RPMs and running watts of that tool or device, even small examples of these generators. So let's take a look at this. All the pros just mentioned here, and the cons. This size range of gas generator isn't going to have 240 volt available, which you need to power a house, which you need to power a welder, or even medium to large equipment. It's now far from silent, and that mixed with the fumes it creates, where it can be located is now relevant. I use this one indoors plugged into my AC unit, and now you need a 30-foot extension cord and somewhere to put it that's not posted outside next to your customers, or in my case, next to the kids' room during nap time. And yes, cost of gas has now entered the chat. You'll need to both store it and stabilize it in today's ethanol mixed stuff and pay for all that. And these are typically one fuel type gasoline compared to some of the ones down here. Mine wasn't electric start when I had it. Few of these size range are, which means starting it like a lawnmower, which isn't the worst thing in the world. But what it really means, I find, like in practical usage, is the wife is going to defer to you 100% of the time to go turn it on in an outage. This is my 12,000 watt gas generator, an open frame 460 cc 16 horsepower generator, and it has a lot of pros over most of the stuff here, and one big con making me replace it. It's got an electric start with a battery, which means the missus has kicked this on a few times, and the choke is very easy. Just wiggle it around until things sound smooth. All kinds of power outlets coming out the front of this thing, so you can run a whole lot of job site equipment with different people using it, or in my case, a house. And we're now also adding the capability of 240 volt 30 amp and 240 volt 50 amp outlets, which means I can hook this up to the outlet I installed on the side of the house, flip over this big sub panel switch, and backfeed this panel, now powering most of the home's needs. With this 50 amp 240 volt, I can now run my welders off of it, which means if you don't have 240 volt 50 amp outlets at your house, you can even just use one of these as a dedicated way to get certain types of welding jobs done. Frankly, there's nothing wrong with it. If you're familiar with this class size of generator, the ones that work just work. This was about $1,000, which is both a lot, sure, but also not a lot compared to how high good generators can go for. Sure, it uses more gas than one of these, about 3/4 of a gallon per hour I find in use, which is 3 to 5 times as much as one of these uses. It's louder than one of these, but my real issue with it currently is dirty power, so let's talk about it. Dirty power means the sine wave, the delivery and consistency of power from a gas generator like this is dirty. It's fuzzy, it's all over the place, which in a home can sometimes look like this, like it does in my home. Some lights flickering, some lights just not turning on, some lights just don't like it, LED lights being more picky about this sort of thing. It can also mean the microwave runs like it turns on but doesn't actually do any cooking, and some types of TVs won't turn on or have issues. And that's all fine. Let's be real, this isn't the Four Seasons, it's a power outage, so never really been an issue. That is until we discovered some cracks and leakage with our own gas furnace heater at home and had an all new, higher tech, more efficient one installed. And this little girl is a prissy princess. The old one was just Bertha. Bertha used a big capacitor on startup, and you could feed her 123 volts, you could feed her 113 volts, and anywhere in between, and she's gonna fire up. This new one is a lot like my microwave. It turns on, but it doesn't do a whole lot after that. Whereas when plugged into the M18 power station, it fires right up. A stable 120, 121, 122 volts coming off of that. And it'll run that at least for a while. Even as a gas heater, they do use some watts. And for us, heat, and depending on where you live, maybe it's AC for you, That's sort of a non-negotiable thing. You gotta have it, or at least keep a fire fed all day and night. So I bought this $170 line conditioner to smooth out our generator's voltage spikes, and more often in our case, voltage shortage. And it did a whole lot of nothing. Bummer. Technological progress really hurt my wallet once again. This is the solution, Harbor Freight's Predator Inverter Generator, that comes with a $2,300 sticker price and some added benefits. So as you can imagine, this is designed to provide a clean sine wave for sensitive modern electronics. Basically, an inverter generator does best at replicating a clean sine wave, and enough so that the furnace is happy and now clicks on, as you can tell from the board light illuminating here. Essentially, as an overview, these two things can't run my furnace, not enough juice. This can, it has clean power delivery, but not for super long, where you need a whole bunch of batteries. And these two gas guys can't, and this one can. The cons are, this is only 9,500 watts instead of 12,000, so more costly for less total watts, which is fine in my case, powering the house, but it is less. And the drawback of that difference here is it means I'm no longer getting a 50 amp outlet that my welders take. This is the largest inverter generator Harbor Freight makes. It also doesn't have remote start like some of their other models do for some reason, despite being their top model, which I didn't notice until setting up. And it also isn't dual fuel like the next model down in the range as well, so it can't run on propane. It does come with a list of other pros as well though. It's got 4 wheels and locks instead of just 2 wheels, so it doesn't require lifting one side of it in order to tote it around. Even larger models than this one often do just have 2 wheels. It's more fuel efficient than my last one. It seems to be about, so far, half a gallon under load, or maybe 0.6 gallons, so 20 to 30% fuel savings as I can tell. And that helps a lot in the long term when it comes to cost and how often you have to top up its 6.6 gallon tank, around the same size as my previous 7 gallon tank. And inverter generators are able to do this by varying engine load, how hard that motor is running based on the wattage that's being requested of it. Traditional gas generators sort of just run and run. Sometimes you need a little juice, sometimes you need a lot, and they, for the most part, just run the same either way. It can be chained in parallel to other models due to this inverter design to sort of like double their running capacity as well, which is pretty cool. And finally, a big difference is going to be noise. This is an enclosed generator, which means it's a bit more weatherproof as well, but also quieter for it. Inverter generators are also quieter in themselves, and they're not always running at a full clip. Lower loads, it doesn't run as hard, and this adds together to make a much quieter overall generator. We're talking an advertised 67 decibels that we measure at 68 to 69 here at the advertised distance, while the previous one I was using measures about 80 decibels from the same distance of location, something you do notice when you're inside the home for sure. And yeah, the lights aren't flickering now, everything turns on fine, microwave is microwaving, and of course the heat is running in the house, which is the main reason I'm even bothering here. So would I buy this again? Yep, probably not. Don't get me wrong, it works. It does work well. I think the quality seems to be very high on this, but if I'm honest, I only bought it because I know a lot of our viewers buy Predator engines, buy their past Predator generators, and likely their new battery power stations that they're coming out with. So I wanted to see if it was going to be worth it for you. And so far, from what I can tell, it's likely not. They're comparing it here to a 7,000 watt Honda, and as usual, that's not a very clear picture. If I were to do it all again, needing an inverter generator, I'd probably get this Champion for around 1,900 bucks, or this Westinghouse for 1,800. Now I got this guy during one of their parking lot sales, so even now it was about 1,800 bucks, and still I would go for one of these today. For one, 11,000 watts, which means it now has a 50 amp outlet I can run my welders off of remotely or when without power, which I have done before. 9,000 running watts, so it's more like a 37.5 sustained amps outlet, not a 50, or peaks up to 46, but that should still work fine for me most of the time when welding. These are both free shipping from Lowe's or from Amazon, so if you don't want to load and unload a 300-pound generator yourself or don't have room to, you can ship it without the $130 freight fee Harbor Freight's gonna charge you. And for number 3, these are available in remote start. Why the top Predator doesn't, I'm not sure. And for 4, these are dual fuel. They can run off of propane, which is a bit less efficient, but we're talking a power outage here. It's nice to have options. Another thing, I do not know why their top model from Harbor Freight doesn't have. And finally, number 5, Champion and Westinghouse, like most other real brands, have a 3-year warranty. Harbor Freight's is the usual 90 days. even on a large purchase like this, but you can purchase a warranty for up to 2 years. Given all this and at retail pricing, it's already the most expensive option we're showing here. So after buying all of these, what I'd get is a top-off or single battery OPE plug-in thing, and a Westinghouse inverter generator in the 5,000 watt range for $800 or 11,000 watt range, depending on the requirements you have, from Lowe's with free delivery, or a Champion off of Amazon. And I'll tag or link those things in case they're useful to you. But that's just me. After using these and looking into all this, hopefully this rundown can save you some time or some money by not having to go through all those same little steps along the way. Thanks for watching.